Today we're going to add another 8 houses to the city. And I'm going to teach you step by step how you can make connected houses like this so that you can become a better builder. First off, I pick a color palette for the bottom. Then I pick some secondary colors for the middle part. And I pick a color for the roof. Now I'm going to put these down as a guideline. So now that we're done with that, you can start removing the guidelines and start by placing in the walls. You can make walls a lot more interesting by texturing them in with different types of blocks, or by creating some depth, for instance, with walls. Then also make sure that there's never 2 walls at the same height touching each other, just again for some extra details. And then I basically just repeat the process. And it should end up looking something like this. Now don't worry if it looks basic or anything right now, we're going to change that in the next parts. Once you've got your walls, you're going to start to add a frame. I normally use spruce items as well as stripped spruce logs and oak logs. I always try to make an uneven gap in between those pillars because it makes detailing the walls a little bit easier. But you essentially need to run this trim all the way across the houses. And always try to come up with some different designs to make this whole thing look a little bit more interesting. Another thing I try to do is to never have 2 logs directly touch each other. So I use some fences and corners here. So it should look something like this. Now with this building I've kept it pretty simple. They're all kind of similar. You can throw in some variations like over here, or you can get creative by doing some diagonal buildings or some regular diagonals, or you can make it diagonal, or just keep it basic and flat. Oh, hold up, quick side mission. So since the first house is oak, we're gonna grab a few oak materials, as well as some more fireworks. And now we're gonna place these shelves underneath this trim right here. And then pull up the main wall with some oak and stripped oak logs. Okay, don't worry about these gaps for now. Instead, start making some windows. Something like this right here. And then we're gonna add some extra details throughout this wall. And then we're going to essentially just repeat this process all around. Oh, come on. Okay, so now that we've done that, you can start to pull up the pillars. Don't forget to strip the logs as well. Now we've got the pillars, we're gonna close it off with some slabs at the top. And then finally close everything off with some more logs. Now we just gotta fill this gap right here with the same block that we used down there. And just like that, we have ourselves a pretty neat looking house wall. We just gotta do this 7 more times and we can skip to the next part on how to make the roof. First up, you're gonna need a bunch of slabs and stairs. Now they don't need to be spruce, but I like to add a spruce trim across all of my houses. Now we're gonna start by framing out the roof so that you can see how it looks in the end without having to build the entire roof before. I like to sort of make some slab roofs on the wider houses and some stair roofs on the narrow ones. And then for now, just take it about to the same height as the second roof you're connecting it to. Also try to make the roof overhang by at least 1 block for some more depth. And don't worry about rebuilding certain parts. If you mess up, just take it down and rebuild it. Okay, so once you've got all of your roofs framed out, it should look something like this. Now I always put a pillar in the middle, as well as pillars in the corners of the houses with stairs. So right in this corner right here. So next up, we're gonna cover the roof. So always try to use some blocks with variation. So instead of just making a brick roof, I'm mixing in some granite as well as some polished granite. It's gonna make it look a lot more interesting than if you're only using a single block. And also try to put the texture down in some patches instead of just outright randomly placing it down. Now the little things like making sure that the patches continue on the other side of the trim, that's like the details on how you can really elevate your builds. And it's really important that you connect these roofs because from far away that's what's visible. So now you got to repeat the process across all of the houses, and always try to make sure that there aren't 2 houses next to each other with the same block palette. That way it doesn't look repetitive or too monotone. So now that that is all done, all we gotta do is fill in this room in between the roof and the second floor. Do not make this mistake right here. Always make sure to add a different color for the third part of my houses, because that's just an easy way to add more detail. So instead of continuing with the same palette, you need to choose a different color. Personally, I like to use light colors. So another easy way of adding more detail is by creating some patterns here. Now you can cover up this spot with some stairs if you want, but it's not necessary. And then another thing I like to do is just add some little details like on the bottom parts. So now you've got to repeat that across the other houses. Now you can really get creative doing this part. So for this roof, I'm gonna use the inside texture of mushroom blocks. Add like a little lantern here, and that is really all it takes. For the slab roofs, I'd advise you to do this inside section directly on top of this log, because if you move it one block back like the other roofs, you're gonna have a problem with this gap right here, and you can't really close it off. So if you put it directly on this block right here, it's gonna be hidden by this slab. And you can still add some extra details with some signs and some fences. The sections like these are a little bit more tricky. First, make a row of top slabs on the interior, just below where the other section of the roof is meeting, and then you can just continue as normal with the beam in the middle and the detail blocks on the side. And just like that, we've built another 8 houses in the city. Let me know what you think about this type of content, and make sure to follow me to become a better builder.